All right, dudes, let's see if we can give this a shot here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work the questions from the pretest just so you can kind of follow along. All right, so the first one looks like it's x plus 5 is equal to 12. Now listen, I want you guys to slow down, make sure you understand what I'm doing here. My goal is to end up with this telling me what number plus 5 is equal to 12. So when you were younger, it used to be, hey, there's some number when increased becomes 12. And so you could say, hey, I'm here at some number. I don't know what that number is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I increase by 5 and I end up at 12, I'm pretty sure going backwards by 5 will take me to where I started. So 11, 10, 9, 8. Yes, indeed, it does appear that 7 is the number. However, because the problem won't always be quite this easy, we need to make sure that we use our algebra skills to understand. And so I'm going to kind of work backwards. My goal is to make this say, lightsies. My goal is for this to say x equals. So right now it doesn't. It says x plus 5 equals. So if I take x plus 5 and I subtract 5 from both sides. Now I'm allowed to do that because that is the subtraction property of equality. Now some of you may understand the process, but wonder why I'm talking about all these fancy words. You have to be able to explain why you did a step in geometry. So now the reason we subtracted here is because 5 minus 5 is 0, okay? And so all this step is called simplification. 5 minus 5 became 0, and 12 minus 5 became 7. That's due to simplification. Now, the last stop then is, what does x plus 0 equal? It's equal to x. So our answer is x equals 7. And the reason I know that x plus 0 equals x is because of the additive identity property. And that says anytime you add a number plus 0, that is equal to that number. It stays the same. Okay, that's number 1. All right, that's number 1. Looks like number 2 is x minus 3 plus 16. Okay, so see if I can save paper here, be a little smarter with my space. So if I go x minus 3 is equal to 16, that's subtraction. I know the inverse of subtraction is addition. So I'm going to do the inverse of subtracting 3, which means I'm going to add 3 on both sides. And the reason I'm allowed to do that is because of the addition property of equality. That says that if you add the same thing to both sides, it's all good. Now, the reason I added 3 is because it's the opposite of negative 3. And I know that anytime you add two opposites, that's equal to 0. Okay, and I can just call that simplification. All right. Now, from here, x plus 0 is x. And I know that that is true because of the additive identity property. And we're done with number 2. Number 3 says 7x equals 56. All right, now for the first time we have multiplication. I know that any number divided by itself is equal to 1 as long as that number is not 0. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So if I want to make this say x equals, I know that if I multiply 1 times x, that's always equal to x. So my first step here, guys, is to divide both sides by 7. Okay, so sorry, I like to rewrite it so that you have the initial problem. So that's the initial problem. I rewrote it. Divide by 7. This is called the division property of equality. 7 divided by 7 is 1. And 1 times x is 1. And 7 divided by 7 is 1. 56 divided by 7 is 8. And I know that's true because that's just simplification. All right? Well, 1 times x is x. So x equals 8. And that is the multiplicative identity. Okay? So x equals 8 is our answer to number 3. Number 4 says x divided by 4 is equal to 12. Well, I happen to know that any number divided by itself is equal to 1. So if I want this to say x equals, sorry guys, running out of space here. Let me try and fix my camera. There we go. All right, so if I know I want to end up with x equals, I got to get rid of this divide by 4. Well, the inverse of division is multiplication, so I'm going to multiply by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1 times x is x. Now, I forgot to, sorry guys, I screwed up again. I forgot to rewrite it. So I like to have the first problem that was given to me and then rewrite it, and then I start doing my math. So I know that this is allowed because that's the multiplication property of equality. You're allowed to multiply both sides by the same thing. This is just simplification. All I did was simplify, okay? 4 divided by 4 is 1. 12 times 4 is 48. And then last but not least, 1 times x is x. So 48 is our answer, and this is the multiplicative identity. Okay, and you guys can see that I am abbreviating quite a bit with these fancy pants words. All right, so now we have x plus negative 7 equals, I think that says negative 13. X plus negative 7 equals negative 13. I think if I wrote that down, yep, that's correct. All right, so now, even though this says add, I know that's negative 7, which means I am going to take x plus negative 7, and I am going to add 7 to both sides, because any number plus its opposite is equal to 0. Adding the opposite, guys, is the same as subtraction. So negative 7 and positive 7 turns to 0. Negative 13 plus 7 is negative 6. I know this is okay because of the addition property of equality. And I know that this is true because all I did was simplify. That's called simplification. Well, any number added to itself is equal to 0. That's the additive identity. And that's the answer to number 5. All right, number 6 says 114 equals negative 4, open parentheses, 6x plus 6, close parentheses, minus 6. So now, there's a few things that are different here, but none of it should cause a problem for us. So the first thing, guys, is this. The 114 is on the left and the x is on the right, but I absolutely do not care about that. The equal sign is the middle. It doesn't matter which side you're on. 114 is just chilling right now. Negative 4 is being multiplied by two things. It's being multiplied by the 6x and the 6. Now, both of these are positive, which means when I multiply this negative through, the result is going to become negative, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do here, guys, is simplify, okay? I'm going to distribute through. It becomes negative 24x minus 24 minus 6. The next thing I'm going to do, guys, is simplify, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is simplify. 114 equals negative 24x. If you owe me 24 and you owe me 6, then altogether you owe me 30. So the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to add 30 to both sides. And the reason I'm allowed to do that is the addition property of equality. So 114 plus 30 is 144 equals negative 24x plus 0. This is simplification, guys. All I did was add 114 plus 30 and negative 30 plus 30. So now it says 144 equals negative 24x, and that's because of the additive identity. If you add 0 to anything, it becomes that thing. Now I'm out of space here, so I'm going to come up and rewrite 144 equals negative 24 times x. Now I want it to say x equals, okay? But in order for it to say x equals, I need to know that I got rid of the coefficient in front of it, all right? And so one of the things that we're going to do now is we're going to divide not by 144, but by the number that's being multiplied in front of the x. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 24. This is allowed because it's the division property of equality, okay? And now all we have to do is simplify. 144 divided by negative 24 is negative 6. Any number divided by itself is 1. All we did to do to get that next step, guys, is simplify. So now it's negative 6 equals x. That's the multiplicative property, or the multiplicative identity. And then, guys, the last thing, if negative 6 equals x, then I know that x equals negative 6. And that's just the symmetry property. Okay, if two things are equal, then you can flip it across. All right, let's see what's next. What's next? What's next? All right. Negative 5x equals 30. Okay. This one I think is a pretty simple one. Divide both sides by negative 5. So we started with negative 5x equals 30. Sorry, guys, it looks a little fuzzy. I hope you can see okay. Negative 5x equals 30. We're going to use the division property of equality. And this gives me any number divided by itself is 1. 1 times x equals negative 6. That's just simplifying. And then any number multiplied times itself is equal to itself. That is the multiplicative identity, excuse me. So we should have gotten x equals negative 6 there. Okay. Up next, x divided by negative 3 equals 6. The inverse of dividing by something is multiplying. So I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 3. Okay, this is the multiplication property of equality. That just means I'm allowed to do the same thing to both sides. Any number divided by itself is 1. 6 times negative 3 is negative 18. All I did there was simplify. Any number times itself is it, excuse me, 1 times any number is itself. So x is equal to negative 18. That is, of course, the multiplicative identity. Okay, and we're going to be reviewing all of these. Your goal is to do the math. I am deepening your understanding while giving you the solution. At least that's what I'm trying to do. 2x plus 6 equals 16. All right, so now I'm going to pick up the pace just a little bit. See if you can follow along. Subtract 6 from both sides because that gives me a 0. 2x plus 0 equals 10 because 6 minus 6 is 0 and 16 minus 6 is 10. 2x plus 0 is 2x because any number plus 0 is itself. 2x equals 10 can be divided on 2 by both sides because 2 divided by 2 is 1. So 1 times x is equal to 5, which means x is equal to 5. So all I did there, guys, was kind of focus more on the math and less on the explanation, okay? Any number divided by 4 less 8 that's equal to 12 has to be a very specific value. All right, so this is another 2-step. The inverse of subtracting 8 is adding 8, and the addition property of equality says that I'm allowed to do that as long as I add to both sides. Negative 8 plus 8 is 0. 12 plus 8 is 20. That's just simplification. Any number plus 0 is that number. So x divided by 4 plus 0 is x divided by 4, still equal to 20. The way to get rid of division is through multiplication. Sorry, off the screen. Is through multiplication. So I'm multiplying both sides by 4. The reason I did that is that 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1 times x is equal to 80. If 1 times x is 80, then x has to be 80 because 1 times any number is itself. All right, guys. That's the video for today. All right. When you're done, when you're done, when you see my face right here, take attendance, go to discussions, and there's a pinned discussion. It's an Ask Me Anything. You have to reply with 1 response from yourself and then 2 comments on somebody else's reply. I love you guys. I'll see you in class on Monday. Have an awesome weekend.